way, but it's not going to happen this second. Now I see Sarah. So Sarah, Joseph, Erica, Chase, and Braylon. Okay, I know the last 2 days have been very beefy, to put it very lightly. Today should not be anywhere near as intensive as the others. There's a lot of images and pictures. Unfortunately, most of this is Latin. I had to go back and tell the internet how to pronounce some of these words because I'm not a Latin connoisseur. But for our opener, first, when did the first real dinosaurs evolve? What time period in the Mesozoic were the original? They were small, but the original dinosaurs. When did that start? Y'all remember the 3 time periods of the Mesozoic? Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous. When did dinosaurs start showing up? Real dinosaurs start showing up, not just dinosaurs. It was in the middle of the Triassic, somewhere between 220 to 230 million years ago. I didn't teach you all the different names of the individual periods. There's 3 parts of the Triassic, 3 parts of the Jurassic, and 3 parts of the Mesozoic. I'm not going to go that deep into this. The height of the differing types of species of dinosaurs started taking off in the Jurassic, but the most diverse of all of the dinosaur species was actually the last section, which was the Cretaceous. When did mammals start popping up? No, middle of the Triassic, right along with the true dinosaurs. Now, the Cretaceous is with the asteroid impact that let the smaller mammals take over, took out all the poor large dinosaurs. Those poor things were just, their flesh was stripped off their bones as they were cooked alive. That's what happened to them. They had nowhere to go. It's actually really sad and terrifying. I mean, I don't know what oh crap is inside a dinosaur's mind, but I'm sure they thought that before they were incinerated. Whereas the smaller mammals, most likely this thing did strike during the day. They were already underground. Most mammals were nocturnal. I just heard an email. I'll check in a second. And so they had the earth itself protected the ones that were deeper underground from the ejecta, from the baptista, all the crap that was thrown up into the air. We call it ejecta. The dust, the heat, the insane wind that was whipping across the planet. But those poor large dinosaurs had nowhere to go. This should not be, like I said, anywhere near as rough as the most recent ones were. Like I said, the last couple of days, I could spend easily a month in the Mesozoic. I'm not going to do that. We don't have enough time to do it. Part of me wants to be able to let you guys upscale dinosaurs. I don't know if you remember when you were kids how you had like a picture of a blue whale and then you like put a grid on it and then you made it larger on that big sheet art paper that's all schools have. I don't know if I can fit that in or not. We will see. I still have to do the Cenozoic, the rise of humans, the Ice Age organisms, things like Smilodon and the Mastodon and the woolly mammoth, all of those. But we'll do that after spring break. The ancestors to all dinosaurs and crocodilians, which are more ancient than dinosaurs, and plesiosaurs and ichthyosaurs, and the flying reptiles, the pteranodons and pterodactyls, they're called archosaurs. The archosaurs are thecodonts. It's just the term. I'm sorry, I can't change the fact that most of this is Latin. Thecodont literally translates to a socket tooth. They're embedded in the jaw. They're normally very conical in shape. And most of these archosaurs were these big, barrel-chested looking primitive crocodiles. Some were very small and some were unbelievably huge. Most of these were carnivorous. Your therapsids, mammal-like organisms, were your herbivores. They were the cattle, cows, if you will, of the dinosaur era. Therapsids made it through the Permian extinction. Archosaurs made it through the Permian extinction. Therapsids made the primary food source for said archosaurs, and eventually they all got eaten and died out. Now, their descendants ended up, that little shrew-looking thing that we talked about yesterday, they made it through. But the big hippo-looking turtle-beak tusk ugly ancestors of ours, they all died out. The Dicynodonts, which were the first ones, and the Cynodonts, that's it. They did not make it through the Triassic. Your ancestors to what you think of as dinosaurs, even though most dinosaurs were not carnivorous, that's what you think of. You think of T-Rex, you think of Spinosaurus, you think of the evil, nasty ones. Those came from these crocodile ancestors. And like I said, the crocodilians, their order is much more ancient than anything else that we have on this planet, at least as far as our land animals. Obviously, there are some marines and fish that are older than that, but we're switching over to the land Mesozoic. So you have this on canvas. Archosaurs, so going back in time, I know they can't see this online. So this is older down here. And as we go up, we're getting younger. Your crocodilians split off first. They are more ancient than anything else. I don't have the ichthyosaurs and the plesiosaurs on here, but they branched off at about the same time as the pteranodons did. It's just they weren't avian, they were aquatic. Dinosauria proper has two major branches. We have ornithixians. These were all herbivores. Things like Triceratops, Stegosaurus. The things that fed the larger carnivorous dinosaurs. Those are the ornithixian, Sarxian. I have to slow down and pronounce these the right way. Some of them were herbivorous. Your titanosaurs eventually in the Cretaceous. But your carnivorous ones, these are what are called theropods. And we're about to break that entire flow chart that I had, which should have been put on your Canvas page down. Archosaurs were very early on in the early Triassic. The Permian extinction was 251 million years ago. Took about 6 million years for things to really start kicking back up again. Like I said, there is no textbook, there's no teacher's manual for this class. I am literally pulling this out of thin air. I am having to research this, which I get to do all weekend long instead of playing with my child. But the early Triassic went to about, give or take, 208 million years ago. The middle was to about 100 and, hold on, let me make sure I have all of my numbers. No, the Jurassic then was to about 144 million years ago, and then the Cretaceous would have been to when Baptiste slammed into the planet about 65 to 66 million years ago. I said mammals and my computer's actually deciding to be it. Mammals and dinosaurs in the middle Triassic started forming at the same time. The dinosaurs got big. Not all of them were huge, but some of them were ginormous. And in response, so that they didn't get predated on as much, mammals got much, much, much smaller. I can't remember if I put another one on here. I did. Your archosaurs, the bulk of them did not make it through the Triassic extinction. Obviously, some of them did, or we wouldn't have the other things that developed into the Jurassic. All different kinds of fun Latin in this one. We're about to do each one of these individually. Most of your archosaurs ended in sucus. It's just the ending of it. Even the technical term for crocodile, which, like I said, I have to read it to pronounce it. Here we go. Crocodiles are, I don't know how to pronounce this. Rauisuchian, Rauisuchian, but there's still a sucus ending, which is tied over to forever ago. This is a little blurry. I couldn't get it to like blow up and not blur. Back in time on this one is the top, your archosaurs. This does look similar to a bird. Eventually they did turn into birds. The Rhynchosauria, this is similar to more of the Therapsids. They had turtle-like beaks. That was the next step on the evolutionary chain. The Protos split off last, and then if you notice, both of these sort of point together with Dinosauria. So anything that's before this point, whether it be this one or it be the other one that was a lot clearer, those are technically not dinosaurs. Anything after Dinosauria proper is considered a dinosaur and eventually turned into birds. Pseudosuchins, sham crocodiles, looks like a crocodile. These things are the ones that turned into the nasty, what you think of as a dinosaur. The big difference with these guys is their front legs were way shorter than their back legs. And when they started running, they would get up on their hind legs and what you think of as like, not like teeny tiny like T-Rex or anything like that, but they couldn't keep up with the front. And that's what started the bipedal, your T-Rex, your Spinosaurus, your Velociraptor, your Archaeopteryx. Archaeopteryx was not a bird, it was a theropod, it was a dinosaur. But in the middle of the Triassic, this is when we had a switch to true dinosaurs. Archosaurs were still around. The flying reptiles, the pteranodons, they were still around. The ichthyosaurs and the plesiosaurs in the ocean, they were still around. But this was where the flip happened. And then with dinosaurs, we had two major branches. We had our cattle, we had our herbivores, and then not all of them on the other side. Some of them still stayed herbivorous, but this is where a carnivore branch went. It has to do with the shape of their pelvis. Did the pelvis point forward, which is reptilian, or did it point backward, which is avian? That's how they classify them, the shape of their hip or pelvic structure. This is essentially that flip. So like I said, a sham crocodile, it still is quadrupedal, but these things, when they started running, would get up onto their hind legs because the front legs just couldn't keep up. They were too short. And this is what drove what you think of as a raptor, what you think of as a T-Rex. Brachiosaurs, they were the most abundant. They tended to be herbivorous. They were like thoracids. They had a turtle-like beak, but they also had teeth. They had 2 rows of teeth in the upper jaw, and then going in between them on the bottom jaw was 1 row of teeth, and it was perfect for chomping up the dense vegetation at the time. I know I have a picture, I think it's on the next slide, of the internal part of their skeletal structure. The plants were a little bit more difficult to digest. The better an herbivore can crunch stuff up, the easier it is for the stomach to digest. If you don't know this, cows have 4 stomachs, and they're constantly spitting their stuff up into their mouths and chewing it back up and swallowing it. These guys had a different kind of tooth structure. If I'm not mistaken, cows don't have upper teeth. They only have lower teeth. They have like a hard plate on the top that they chew stuff up on. I think most ruminants are that way. I don't know. I'm not an FFA person. I'm not a biology person. I just know that their digestive system has to be that way to be able to process plants. Most organisms don't process plants well. We poop it back out. It's called fiber. It's also why when you eat corn, no matter how much you chew up the corn kernel, when you go to the bathroom, it looks like it comes back out whole again. You can't digest that outer coat. We don't have the digestive ability to do it. Oh. Is anybody still doing this one? So this is a rhinoceros. So very turtle-like beak. Inside the skull, and don't worry, you don't have to draw this or anything like that, but inside the skull, this is the inside of the upper jaw, and there's a row of teeth here, and a row of teeth here on both sides, and then here and here, and then the bottom teeth would just fit up in between it, and it was like the epitome of a scissor bite. And it just was extremely well adapted to be able to digest these harder to eat ferns. The protos. This is early. This is before dinosaurs, like I said, around 230 or 220-ish million years ago. So this is older. therapsids were around. Okay, the early therapsids were disonodonts. Their evolutionary advance further on were a cynodont. None of those made them through the Triassic, but their descendant, the mammal, actually did. I said our therapsid ancestor that made it through the Permian was called Lystrosaurus, which looked like a turtle-beaked, hippo-tusked, ugly cow thing. But our descendant that made it through the Cretaceous extinction, 13 centimeters, is only about yay long. It was essentially a rat. That's what all mammals came from. And I can't remember who asked me what question with the writing prompt. Somebody asked, why did they get so big? Early Triassic were small. The largest of the Triassic plant eaters, 8 meters. So, about from here to where the bookshelf is. That would have been the longest one. They weren't necessarily super tall. I hate to include the tail. They can't just see what I did online, but you have more plants, you have more oxygen. Most dinosaurs, we believe, not all of them, but most of them were cold-blooded, but some of them were warm-blooded. All of this means to a larger herbivore. Well, if you have a larger food source, then you're now going to get larger predators. And in the Jurassic, we saw a huge increase in size. The Cretaceous was when we had the largest of the large, things called titanosaurs, like Brachiosaurus. That was an Argentinosaurus, which was the heaviest known dinosaur, but not the tallest known dinosaur. They're not exactly the same thing. Predator-prey relationship drives evolution. Plate tectonics drives evolution. Climate change drives evolution. They all work hand in hand. It would be really cool to be able to go back in time and watch these things running around and chasing each other and not be in danger of being squished flat by a foot that's as wide as I am tall, or chewed up by something that has teeth that are as long as my forearm. No, thank you. This is, let's see, which one did I have on the, so this is the proto-dinosaur. Okay, this is technically not a dinosaur. This is an archosaur. This is an early stage. Like I said, they were, in fact, the largest head-to-body ratio was the Triceratops. Its head was 1/3 the length of its body. So, but this is technically not a dinosaur. It is more crocodilian in shape. But these, like I said, these are early, not necessarily archo, which is ancient dinosaurs. But they have some of the classic things, the big sharp teeth, and like I said, they're getting smaller front legs, long tail. So I've had people ask, how do we know what color they were? Unless they're preserved in amber, we don't for sure. We base it off of modern reptiles and birds. The Saurosuchus. This was the largest of the predators in the Triassic. 7 meters is 21 feet. So, how many does it look like? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Okay, so that long. And that was the largest of, and the most fearsome, therefore, of the well, this is late Triassic. This is true Dinosauria proper. It's still a suchus. Like I said, if you see the ending suchus, it's going to look very similar to an alligator or a crocodile. They didn't make it through the Triassic, though. Other ones did. They did not. This is the scientific name for all crocodilians. I said I very much have to slow down and read to pronounce, and I'm probably not going to be pronouncing every single one of these words correctly, because I've never been educated in dinosaur evolution, but I had a lot of fun putting these notes together the next 2 days. The different species. I've included as many as I can. Can't do every single dinosaur. I mean, I could, but this would take us a month, and I don't have time for that. Eventually, we have to do Cenozoic, and then we have to switch over to the water cycle, I believe, is what's next. Eventually, we're going to get into human global warming. I've already mentioned about the bees. We did that on Monday. And y'all, seriously, if all the bees go away, we will have a drastic change in our food supply. If you do not have the pollinator, the plant will not survive. You would literally have to take a Q-tip and take the pollen from the anther and put it on the stamen of the pistil, which I've had to do with squash and zucchini. Because my neighbor got rid of his bees. Because his grandson went to go play with them and got stung like 100 times. The bee movie, had just come out not too long ago, and he thought that all bees were friendly, and most honeybees will not bother you, but he literally was getting into the hive. And they had to take him off. He survived, but yeah. But I mean, I had a 16 by 16 garden when I was, both the wasps and the bees, they didn't care about me. They either wanted the pollen or they wanted things like the caterpillars. Like in the case of the wasps, they didn't bother me at all. Miss having a big garden. And so these are different as far as the Triassic. All of these should be Triassic. Yes, some of them. So this is the Sarasuchus. This was the largest of them, one that literally is like almost the length of this room. Obviously, the person is not a dinosaur. That's putting it into perspective on how large these things were. We think most of the ones that had the sails like this, or even like Stegosaurus had the plates, it could have been to impress the ladies, but most likely it was for thermal regulation. The heat. So like when an elephant gets hot, it fans its ears. Like when a kangaroo gets hot, it licks its wrists to cool itself off. So if they're cold, they would turn this into the sunlight and it would warm them up. If they're hot, then they would do the opposite of that. But it probably had multiple, like the sails and the fins and these kinds of things had multiple purposes. We're never going to know 100%. So we base a lot of the stuff that we think that we know of dinosaurs with modern organisms, both reptiles and birds. So the next branch after archosaurs were our flyers. Pterodactyl, pteranodon, the Quetzalcoatlus, I think is how you pronounce the largest of the large, with a wingspan of about 40 feet. Its head was longer than I am tall. It would eat me in one giant gulp and not have teeth. It would, like a penguin, just sort of swallow me whole. Your flying dinosaurs are not dinosaurs. They are older. They were just alive all the way through the Cretaceous. The largest of the flying ones, the Quetzalcoatlus. I don't think I'm saying that right because I have to read it. They were there as far as the extinction event. They couldn't necessarily fly above it because with ejecta, the stuff comes back down and literally punch holes through the membrane of their wing, and they would crash to the ground and die. They would burn holes through them too. All of your flying ones, especially the more evolved ones in the Jurassic, the early ones in the Triassic were like almost like sugar gliders, but they were lizards. They had airfoils. But eventually it was more bat-like. And they all had very large eyes. For a dinosaur, it had a much larger brain to body mass ratio. They were still lizards. They weren't the smartest of things, but they weren't the dumbest of them all. The dumbest, the Stegosaurus, its brain was about this big. And it was over 5,000 pounds. It had the lowest brain to body mass, but all it did was eat plants and poop and make babies and die. They weren't the smartest of them. Your more bird-like dinosaurs were the more intelligent of them. So that's Sarcosaurus. Do I have one more on here? No. It's been a while since I built these notes. Most of your dinosaurs, and when I say dinosaur, I'm including a pterosaur, even though technically it was not. They had hollow bones and helped lighten the load of their skeleton. Not all of them. Your largest of your titanosaurs had hollow bones. Otherwise, they would have crushed under their own body weight. They would have had to stay in the water to help support their mass. We're not really getting into specific species today. Tomorrow we'll do Triassic and Jurassic. And then Friday is Cretaceous. And the questions that you guys had. I think I answered every single person's, as long as you did the writing prompt on time. I incorporated all of your inquiries, I think all of your inquiries into it. If I missed you, I apologize, I didn't mean to. Okay. All right, so after our flying dinosaurs, which were not really dinosaurs, then we had the true Dinosauria proper. And you have two major branches of dinosaurs, completely and totally determined by the way that their pelvis is facing. I'm gonna check. Let me check my email because I keep hearing things. Follow up to recent governor's executive. So what does Smith say? Okay, we have scheduled conference calls this week with each entity, which would be the TEA, Texas Education Agency, and also probably Tarrant County. Yep, Tarrant County Public Health and Parker County officials. They're going to gather additional information and we'll share any changes to the current COVID protocols. Okay, so we just don't know yet. For those of you that are like, can we just throw the masks away? That's from the superintendent. They have to meet with everybody and figure out what they're going to do. Oh, great. Somebody from first period is quarantined who doesn't like to wear his mask. No, second period, not first period. Second period. We're in first period, second period. No, honestly, between whether somebody actually has COVID or it's just close contact, it is flip-flopping back and forth so fast, I cannot keep up with it anymore. On my seating chart, like if I had a sub, I used to put, if a student was quarantined, you can't legally tell somebody else if they have COVID, but I can't keep up with it. It changes too much. I don't have the time to do it. It's just too much. I already spend the first 30 minutes of every morning fixing attendance from the previous day. All right, so two major branches. The ornithixians have a bird-like hip. Ornithixians, I double-checked it to my knowledge, and I haven't checked every single dinosaur that's ever existed because that's physically impossible. These are herbivores. They're plant eaters, things like Stegosaurus, things like Parasaurolophus, the Pachycephalosaurus, all of them were herbivores. And then the Sauroxians, the really big ones, the long-necked plant eaters like a Brontosaurus, Brachiosaurus, a Brachiopharapus, an Argentinosaurus, they were all herbivores. But the other side of this, the theropods, the ones that were upright, the little arms, most of those were either carnivorous or they were omnivores, and they would eat both plants and animals. There were some that were herbivorous, but I cannot do every single species of dinosaur. It's just physically impossible. Sauroxians, reptile hip, pelvis pushes forward, the way that the hip bone is. There's two major things that we use to classify dinosaurs. One is the hip structure. Yes. I'll double check it in a second. That doesn't surprise me if I made a mistake. I'll go back and fix it. Is there one more? Here, let me double check that right now. Which ones are they? Which questions? 6 and 7. Let me look. Yes, you can use the restroom. Let me look and see. Dinosaur evolution assignment. What did I do wrong? Y'all know I'm not perfect. I make mistakes all the dang time. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I see. One's supposed to be forward and one's supposed to be backward. So forward, backward. All right, I'm fixing it right now. Save. I don't know if you can refresh it and it'll fix it. But yeah, the 7th one should have been back. If the first one was forward, then the second one should have been backward. Been a while since I've had a bad boo-boo like that. Back to the right slide. All right, so with the Saurischians, which is how you pronounce that, I'm not mispronouncing it, they didn't all have super long necks. Okay, but some of them did. Some of them had extremely long necks. The sauropods did. Your four-footed, long-necked herbivorous dinosaurs, things like the Brontosaurus or the Brachiosaurus, they actually changed Brontosaurus's name and then they switched it back again. That happened not too terribly long ago, actually. Would you think of the Land Before Time Littlefoot? Okay, those are sauropods. Your two-legged, not all 100% are carnivores. There were some herbivorous ones and there were some omnivores, things that would do both plants and animals. But the bulk of your carnivores are theropods, which are more bipedal. They have much shorter, not necessarily T-Rex level, but much shorter front legs, and they tend to be upright. And your theropods are the ones that eventually evolved into birds. The other stuff didn't really make it through. All these other large dinosaurs, like I said, they couldn't survive the Cretaceous extinction. It just didn't. They had nowhere to go. They cooked alive in their own flesh. They must have been terrified. Whatever translates to being terrified for a dinosaur's brain. Ornithixians. Point backwards. This is an avian. That's what the prefix O-R-N is a bird. These had beaks like turtles. They would chomp up the grass and the ferns and the cycads and the ginkgos and whatever else that these herbivorous dinosaurs were feeding on. Most of these, we believe, were herd animals. Now, I've had people ask, are we going to watch Jurassic Park? No. The documentary that's going to take 2 days on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week actually does sort of do like a Jurassic Park kind of thing. It's like a storyline with different types of dinosaurs, how they interacted with each other. It was how we think they did. Not all dinosaurs nested. Your really large nomads like Argentinosaurus, if it was time for mommy to lay some eggs, she laid some eggs and she walked on and they hoped that the baby survived. Things like Apatosaurus. They couldn't stop to nest. They had to eat so much food, they had to keep pushing on. But we do have evidence of eggs together with nesting. The oviraptor, which forever has been considered an egg thief, now we're thinking maybe it was just found around its own nest and it wasn't trying to steal the eggs. We'll talk about those, if not tomorrow, it's on Friday. But they had more security in a large group. And your theropods, your carnivorous ones, they would pick off the young and the weak. And it actually would make the rest of the herd stronger. It's called evolution. These are different types of ornithixians. Triceratops is Cretaceous. Ankylosaurus, the one that you think of with the big club on the end of its tail, is Cretaceous. I believe Stegosaurus was Jurassic, but I'll have to go back and double check it. I've already done all of those. The biggest of the meat eaters. I've had people ask, were they cannibals? Some of them were. They would actively not just scavenge the dead. A meat eater was not going to turn up a carcass. So yeah, in that case, they would eat their own kind. Most of your larger theropods, like Giganosaurus, the largest of all of them was Spinosaurus, had a big sort of sail on the back, and the tail was more paddle-like. Spinosaurus would hunt both on land and the ocean, which is sort of terrifying, with more of a crocodile face than a T-Rex looking face. We do not think that they actually actively hunted their own kind. There were some that did. And we'll talk about one of those tomorrow, one of the smaller Triassic dinosaurs actively fed off of the young of its own species, which is sort of opposite to like survival of the species, but they did. We think that a lot of our carnivores hunted in small packs. Some of the smaller ones would hunt in larger packs. They'd be able to take down things that were larger than themselves. Once again, we don't really know all of it for sure. We have found specific dinosaur teeth embedded in other dinosaurs' bones. So we have that proof. Or claws that are stuck in other dinosaurs' bones. I don't know, this is the class I forgot to show. And I don't remember when the mesosaur was specifically around, but I do have their teeth. I've got 4 of them. This was a aquatic. This is technically not a dinosaur tooth. This is a plesiosaur tooth, but I do have them in these fossil kits that I ordered. Eventually, I'm going to add on to my collection. Those were like $150 a kit. Expensive. Oh, so Allosaurus is the king of the carnivores from the Jurassic. Okay, T-Rex is the king of the dinosaurs from the Cretaceous. They were approximately the same size. T-Rex was a little bit larger. They were not at the same time period. And so this is showing you, and I'm pretty sure this is the last one. Yes. This is showing you the difference of the way of this forward-facing or backward-facing hip. Your sauropods, like I said, Littlefoot, those were the herbivorous Syrinxians. The theropods, most of them, that's where your carnivores come from. Your bird hip, all of these were essentially cows. Every single one of them was herbivorous. I could not find a single one that was an omnivore, and none that were carnivores. So yet they were your, I said, they were your cows of the dinosaurs. That's what the bulk of your larger theropods are. That's the last one. Let me know if I put this picture in your canvas or not. I don't remember. I said today was shorter. Let me stop my recording and go through what people are missing for assignments. And stop recording. That's frozen.